was talking about earlier. So you stick your business card in.
There's huge ones over there.
I'm going to take a couple minutes and kind of give some advice. If you're a homeowner, DIYer, thinking about doing lawn care for yourself, I put together a couple tips of how the pros, us, do it, especially here in the Midwest, here in central Indiana. And maybe you can take some of this information, do a little research on your own, figure out what will work best for you in your area. Keep in mind everything that I'm about to share is directly backed up through Purdue University's Turf Science Center up there. So I'm not trying to give you any tips that aren't recommended by Purdue University. These are all things that we know work. There's science that backs them up. When you're doing lawn care, you need to keep that in mind. Everything that you do needs to be backed up by some sort of science to get the most benefit out of what you're doing. It's going to take time. It's going to cost some money to kind of get used to what you need to do, when you need to do it, and how you need to make an application and whatnot. But once you get down, once you get it figured out, it's pretty simple, straightforward stuff. So, lawn applications. First things first. Time of the application. When do you want to make your first application, your second application? What kind of weather is going to be going on before and after your application? So the timing of your application is really important to know. And then the other 2 points here I have, what's in the application and what are you trying to control with that application. That all kind of ties back into the timing of the application. So here in Indiana, it is late January right now, so we're not even thinking about putting any products down right now. You could go outside and spray herbicide all day, but number one, it goes against product label. Number two, it's not going to be effective at all. So you really have to look at what time of year you're dealing with on what you need to control. So what's coming up mostly for us real soon is we're going to be starting our crabgrass control applications. A crabgrass pre-emergent. Prodiamine is one of the main active ingredients that you'll see listed on a product label. So you want to look for that whenever you're picking out a product for your crabgrass pre-emergent. That's what we use in a lot of our applications for our first application. A lot of customers get the product that has Prodiamine on it. What are you trying to control with the crabgrass pre-emergent? Obviously, crabgrass. Now there's some timing issues that you need to keep in mind when you're making your first application, when you're putting down your crabgrass control, when you're going to start spraying weeds, right? So ideally, you need to put that crabgrass pre-emergent down as close to when that crabgrass is going to start germinating. If you put your crabgrass pre-emergent down now, right here in the middle of January, it's going to sit there, the product's going to soak into the soil, but over time, sunlight, weather issues, heat, cold, things like that start to wear down the effectiveness of the active ingredient. So you don't want to apply your crabgrass pre-emergent too early, but you also don't want to apply it after the crabgrass has already started germinating because it's not going to be effective as it should be. For us here in Indiana, where we're at, April 15th is kind of the magic day, right? We track our weather and our ground temperatures, our soil temperatures, and our growing degree days through Purdue University and Michigan State University to really monitor and make sure our applications are being put down at the correct time. But if you, a good thing to think about is if you get your crabgrass pre-emergent down about the first week of April, here in central Indiana, you should have some pretty good coverage. Depending on the weather, it could be a really mild winter or something, and the ground temperatures warm up a lot sooner. Typically, that April 15th time frame is pretty safe, though. But you always want to double check with the weather. Now, next thing to consider: you're putting down crabgrass pre-emergent before April 15th. I can almost promise you it's going to be too cold to effectively apply a herbicide. Now there's herbicides out there in different formulations that can work in cooler temperatures, and that's fine and great and everything. They are a little bit more expensive, so you need to keep that in mind. But again, with the growing degree days and through Purdue University and Michigan State that we use, that also has a nice little tracker on there that helps us be sure that we're applying herbicide at the correct time for when it's going to be most effective. And one thing to also understand when making applications is all these products have a product label. When you look at that product label, it's going to give you every piece of information you need to know about this product. It's going to tell you what type of safety equipment you need to be wearing, whether long sleeves, gloves, face mask, eye mask. It's going to be telling you how to properly mix the product. It's going to tell you when you can apply the product, because after certain temperatures, either above or below, it may not be on the label to say you cannot apply this product over 90 degrees, or you can apply this product over 90 degrees. So you really need to make sure you're watching and reading that label. The label is the law, and if you get caught applying a product against what the product label states, you can face a penalty from your state's agency that regulates pesticide use like that. So keep that in mind as well. So let's say we're just plugging along here in Indiana. We call them rounds, so each application goes by rounds, so round 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We do 5 applications a year here where we live, and that gives us some pretty great coverage, year-round nutrition and year-round weed control. So our first application, we'll apply the granular product. So this is our granular fertilizer here. Imagine that that's the fertilizer, and the pre-emergent is adhered to that fertilizer. So we're throwing out one product over the entire property there. Second round comes along, we're spraying for weeds because it's finally warm enough. So let's see here, this will be our weed here, dandelion or something like that, or clover. And then we're also putting out granular fertilizer. And then as the seasons change, different weeds are going to start popping. So of course the first things that you'll see as a homeowner come springtime are dandelions. They're bright, they're yellow, you can't miss them, right? So when you start to see the weeds popping, you might think, okay, now it's time to go spray for weeds. You have to understand that it still could be a little too cold for that herbicide to take effect properly. We space our applications out about 6 to 8 weeks apart, all weather dependent. Again, weather is a key factor in the timing of the applications. If you have a grub problem in your property, where you see a lot of grub damage, or you've had a history of it before, you want to really kind of invest in a good product there that's going to help protect your lawn. Best time to do that is in the middle of spring. It's going to give you some year-round grub control there. Now, if you do have grubs in your lawn, you'll see them right now and in the springtime, but they're not actively feeding, so they're not doing any damage. You want to put that grub control down. I'll just go ahead and write it down right here. And it's going to last you the rest of the season, because as those grubs evolve's not the right word, but as they change into beetles, whether they're Japanese beetles or June bugs, they're going to lay eggs in the soil about right here in the middle of the summer. And then once those eggs hatch, then you're going to have the grubs start to eat your root system of your grass. And so that grub control product that you put down in early spring is going to help take care of all those issues that you might see later on in the season. Your summer application comes around, it's probably hot, it's dry, the lawn's stressed out. Here in the Midwest and central Indiana, we have a lot of cool season grasses, tall fescues, bluegrasses, things like that. So summertime, your lawn's running out of gas. It doesn't want to grow. You can throw a bunch of nitrogen at it and a bunch of fertilizer. That's just going to stress it out even more, dry up the soil even more. So you want to be very careful with what you're doing out there come summertime. We use a couple different products during the summertime. Low nitrogen, we really focus on the soil health. Summertime's a really good time to be working in the soil and see how you can improve the soil down there. And it's also a really good time. Surface feeding insects are really active in the summer, so maybe an insecticide product. Grub control is going to do great for the grubs, but it also has very little effect on other surface feeding insects. So you need to make sure, don't think that just because you put the grub control down that you're going to have protection over surface feeding insects. It's going to require a different product on that. So round 3, we're putting out a granular fertilizer, so I'm just going to write fert and herb. So we're spraying for weeds, and we're Putting out fertilizer. Round 4, same thing. I cannot spell. So you're probably looking at it and you're like, okay, round 1 you're putting out granular product with pre-emergent, not spraying weeds. 2, 3, 4, and 5 you're doing the same thing. So, explain that, right? So round 2, 3, 4, and 5 you're going to be seeing different weeds as the year moves on, right? Your growing season changes throughout the year. Dandelions, clover, spurge, nutsedge, crabgrass starts coming up later in the summer. So as your growing season changes, your weeds change, your target's going to change on what you're trying to kill. A simple, 3-way herbicide's great, but it's not going to target all the weeds. A 3-way herbicide's not going to touch yellow nutsedge. You're going to need a product with sulfentrazone in it. It's not going to do anything if you have crabgrass showing up that broke through. Even though you put down crabgrass pre-emergent, you're going to need a product that's got quinclorac in it. So you need to really understand what you're trying to go after to get good coverage of it. And the other thing you really need to focus on too, and it's a question we get all the time. We get a call, hey, I got crabgrass growing in my lawn. We get out there, it's actually not crabgrass. It's a different type of weed. Really try and identify what you have going on there in your lawn to really give you the most benefit when you go to buy the product. You know you're getting the right product that's going to kill the right weed that you're trying to. As we get later in the season, in the fall time here, your lawn starts to pick back up. It starts growing a little bit more. Temperatures cool down in the mid-70s. We get a little bit more rain. You start mowing a little bit more often. You really want to start feeding your lawn for the winter time. It's going to store the nutrients in the root system. You want to make sure that you provide it what it needs so it can make it through the winter dormancy into the next season. A couple things to keep in mind. Throughout the entire year, do not mow your turf any shorter than 3.5 inches if you've got a cool season turf grass in your lawn. We have tall fescue around here, bluegrasses, like I said, 3.5 inches or higher, and you're going to see great results. Some folks in the winter time, or we call it the winterizer application, around October, November, will go out there and do their lawn treatment, and they've mowed their lawn down to about 1/2 inch, and we ask them why. And they say, well, I wanted to clean up all the leaves off my lawn, so I mowed it all short. And that goes against everything that we've done all season to give them a good, nice lawn. Because when they mow that short, now the plant, instead of trying to store and recover and save all the energy that you're feeding it from that fertilizer to make it through the winter, that plant is spending all that energy to regrow and try and at least survive the next couple of weeks, and it's not even thinking about winter nutrition storage. And so really, never mow your lawn any shorter than 3.5 inches, and you're going to see some pretty good results just by all that thing. So that's pretty much it. Time and application, you need to know what's in it, you need to know what you need to control. Everything else, like I said, do your research. Find a university that you trust that has a good turf science program. We use Purdue because they're right in our backyard, about an hour away from here, so they test and see everything that we see out in the field every day. That's a couple good tips for you to get you going, and hopefully you have a great growing season this year.